All right, we are live. Let's try this one more time. Okay, excellent. Let me double check. Perfect.
Great.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, good morning, everybody. Sorry if you tuned into the other broadcast and now we've got a second one going, but thank you for the adjustment. We had some technical difficulties this morning. But good morning. My name is Jamie Chavez. I'm the president and CEO of the Westminster Chamber of Commerce, and we're thrilled to have you with us today for this City Updates live broadcast. As always, we're here to bring you the latest insights from City Hall, featuring conversations with our councillors, mayor pro tem, and other city leaders. It is your backstage pass to what's going down in Westminster. If this is your first time joining us on the broadcast, thank you. We appreciate you being here. If you're on Facebook, you can like and follow our page to get notifications for when we go live in the future. And if you're on YouTube, hit subscribe, and then you can view all of our previous broadcasts there as well. Mondays are broadcasts all about city updates, and Wednesdays we offer a chance to meet some of the newest members of the chamber and learn about their businesses and organizations. So I encourage you to join us for those broadcasts as well. This Wednesday, I'll be live at 11 a.m. with JP Morgan Chase. So I'm excited for them to share their services with you as well. As you watch the broadcast this morning, feel free to engage with us, drop your comments, ask any questions, or simply say hello. We'll get to all of those during the interview. And now, finally, a very warm welcome for the first time to new councillor Adam Barajas. How are you today?
Doing well. Thanks, Jamie, for having me. I appreciate the work the chamber does and your willingness to engage with the city. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. Since it's your first time on the broadcast, I thought we could focus today just on like a get to know you show, and just kind of want to start with, for those who may not know you yet, maybe you can share a little bit about your background and what led you to taking this position on council.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity for the introduction. So my name's Adam Barajas. I was born in San Antonio, Texas, 36 years ago, and I moved here to the Denver area for college. I went to Regis University for my undergraduate studies, where I got my bachelor's degree in chemistry, and I fell in love with the state, and I really wanted to live here. After finishing my degree in chemistry, I immediately went to grad school, where I got my master's in education through the University of Notre Dame. And that program had me traveling. So I would go to Indiana, South Bend, Indiana for the summertime to take summer classes. And then every student in that program would kind of teach throughout the country. Some of my best friends were in Sacramento or in Washington, D.C. I was in Brownsville, Texas, which is, as we lovingly say, on the border by the sea. It's kind of the south tip of Texas is what we call it in Texas warmly. So after 2 years there, I packed my bags and moved right back to Colorado, where I lived in Denver just for a year, and then I moved to the northwest area. I lived in unincorporated Adams County for a couple of years, and then my partner and I moved here to Westminster about 10 years, just shy of 10 years ago.
Awesome, great. What first drew you here to Westminster? Like, what makes this community home for you?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of people, I initially was just drawn by the lower cost of living, to this area. I had, my work was in the Highlands in Denver, so in the city of Denver, and I was teaching there for a while. And, I loved the area, but I definitely couldn't afford to live there on a teacher's salary. So I initially kind of moved when we first made our first home purchase in early 2016. We just were looking for a place that was kind of close to where we both worked and was affordable. And this was, this area kind of made sense for us. But as we kind of planted our roots here, we started to fall in love with the communities, particularly the trail and park system. It was really nice to be able to live, in the city while also being able to have multiple miles of trails and connectivity, parks readily available. So that kind of kept us here. We initially didn't have that in mind when we moved here, but I think that definitely made us fall in love with it. And then seeing all the services that Westminster and the surrounding, Northwest area really provided was captivating. We didn't have to go to Denver for everything. We were able to live our lives close to home, which as we got older, we really started to love not having to travel, not even having to drive a lot of the time. We could either walk or bike to a lot of the places that were important to us. So, then we slowly started to call Westminster home. And I would say, around COVID time, when things just started to shift for the nation, for the state, for everyone, I would say, we just started to get involved, just seeing how powerful, individual voices were in city governance, and started to participate. So I took the Civic Academy, through the city manager's office. Then from there, I was, exposed to the police academy, the Citizens Police Academy and the Citizens Fire Academy, where I got to meet more city staff and see a lot more of the services that the city provides. And I've just kind of stayed connected throughout. And for those who don't know, my journey to council is not a typical one. So in November, when Mayor Carmelia won her election, she had to vacate her city council seat. And so that left a vacancy that the council decided to fill via application process. I was more than happy to put my name in, and very surprised that they picked my name, but glad and honored, very honored to serve. I think this is one of the most certainly difficult, but most important jobs I've ever had. So I'm very glad to be here and to serve the city as best I can.
Yeah, definitely an important job. And you mentioned COVID. Was that the particular moment when you decided public service was the path for you, or were there other things?
Yeah, so I think I would say around COVID is when I started to really reflect on the bigger questions of life, right? Like, what is my purpose here on this earth? What's my role within my community? And being a civil servant was never necessarily part of my plan. I think, I kind of stayed tangentially, related to city council and council governance, but it was something that I kind of stayed informed on. And so when the vacancy process kind of came up, I had to do a lot of reflection. So I would say during COVID is maybe when the seeds were planted, but a couple of months ago when the vacancy happened, that's when I seriously considered that maybe this is something that I could do.
Awesome. Well, what professional or life experiences do you think have most prepared you for this role?
Yeah, so I was an educator for 10 years, and I feel like that while being I almost feel like everyone could be an educator and learn so much about themselves and the way that they relate to others. I think it was an incredibly rewarding and difficult job. And one of the most difficult skills that I developed in that process was the building my capacity to remove my ego and my personhood from sort of decision-making process. So as I engage with stakeholders in various plans, and what this looks like in education, right, is just, I have lessons that I can build, I have assessments that I build, I have goals that I'm trying to take the class towards. But every year and every class is completely different. I taught middle school math and science, and then high school math and science afterwards. And every single class, every single period was different, even if I had the same plan and the same assessment. So I quickly learned it wasn't really about me. It was about the people around me. And there's a lot of humility and difficult personal growth that you really have to engage with. And I feel like that's something that I'm very glad that I had experience with before, and I'm very happy to re-engage with that kind of growth process again. I also feel like I worked for a while in risk management with Pulte Mortgage Capital Markets team, and doing a lot of analytical work, really digging into numbers and contracts and data has also helped me be as litigious as possible when making decisions around, what council approves and doesn't approve.
Awesome. Well, you've kind of been, what's that phrase? Drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
Getting thrown in, and it's been a lot, and we're kind of watching that with council right now. You guys do so much for the community. What has been so far your favorite part about being on council?
Yeah, I think being able to have a overwhelmingly positive reception from city staff. They've been, I feel like city staff is always ready to engage with the city council, particularly the city manager's office is really happy to make those connections happen and really support the expertise that city staff brings to the conversation, and it's an really, I'm humbled by how smart our staff is, and how willing they are to share that expertise with us. And particularly, they're really receptive to the voice that we bring from community stakeholders. So a lot of times they come in and we have conversations about whether it's public utilities or land use or even impacts of ordinances. And they have their expertise, which they're well trained in, but they all take very big steps back when we bring kind of differing voices to the table. So we offer maybe either a conflicting or an alternate view from community members in our conversations, our town halls, our outreach that community brings. And seeing staff be one so smart in their in their fields of expertise, while also being very willing to take that feedback, I think has been one of my favorite processes that I'm glad to be a part of, and really happy to witness.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there.
Yeah.
And I know that you've been out talking to a lot of residents. When you're talking to residents, what do you feel like their top issues are right now that they're telling you about?
Yeah. So I would say it's funny because it's every resident has a different spin, and even when some of them are speaking of the same thing, they're coming at it from different perspectives.
Mhm.
I think everyone's concerned about the economy. I think particularly business owners, which the chamber does so well to represent, but also participants, consumers within our economy, are worried about having to make decisions around what what businesses they can support, because they're feeling a real big stretch in their pocketbooks. So that's certainly something. We're also seeing the impact that the affordability crisis is having within a variety of stakeholders within the city. And that goes from, like I said, business owners, but also to those who might be living on the margins, people who don't have access to maybe the immediate resources that most humans kind of are used to, or that maybe even that they were used to, whether it's medical care, housing, or even sometimes in dire situations, food and water security as well.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you see City Council working collaboratively with the chamber and with our local businesses?
Yeah. So my vision is really rooted in connectivity, in community connectivity, and people knowing, people for a while now have gotten to know their neighbors less and less. And we see that loneliness not only having an impact in kind of personal relationships, but also in people's actual physical health. The former Surgeon General has written multiple articles and books around the actual physical impact in people's cardiovascular health that loneliness has. And this is kind of a long way of saying that I think my goal as a city leader is to really engage with that connectivity and allow businesses and residents to really be able to pull back what the processes look like, what decisions are our businesses having to make, what kind of cost cutting measures, revenue decisions are businesses making, and how do residents really tap into supporting these in spite of rising costs, or how do residents tap into the existing business community to maybe tap into possible revenue streams for themselves. So there's that maybe is just kind of a big picture thing. I think city council can do a couple of things. One, really make decisions that support economic growth for various sectors, particularly those that have been maybe less, whether it's less supported or less encouraged. That nothing, maybe any wrong decisions in the past around that, but if we're getting insight into certain sectors that have been historically under supported, maybe there's opportunities for council to kind of step up and make decisions that don't impact them negatively, while also really tapping in and allowing access for residents to either resources or commerce that they might not have access to, whether that's via transportation or connectivity as well.
Yeah. Well, Westminster, I think, is very uniquely situated, not just in space, right? Like where we are located. But I think just overall, we're in a really great spot. And just wondering what excites you most about the future of Westminster.
Yeah, I think we've had such a great gift over the last, you know, in the history, even as I've not been a part, when I was a baby growing up in Texas, there was work being done here in Westminster for regional connectivity. I'm seeing, there's a lot of groundwork that has been laid and relationships that I'm stepping into that have been fostered by previous city leaders throughout, the history of this city. And I'm really excited to continue to tap into that, because the way that the economics flows, as you're well aware, right? It flows throughout this region, and Westminster is an active part of not only capturing that economic activity, but also bolstering it and encouraging it. We're a regional leader,
Yeah.
and I am really excited to kind of continue it. I feel very humbled that I'm stepping into this role, but I know that we have great support systems in the chamber, along with the current city council and city staff that, again, has been fostered by the councils before us to really step into that regional partnership. So that's something that I think is really exciting. As technology kind of really increases our capacity for connectivity, I think that we're well equipped to step into that space.
Awesome. Great. Well, let's talk a little bit more just about Adam. What do you think? How would you describe your leadership style?
Yeah, I am, energetic, I think, is probably one of my pieces. As I'm getting older, maybe that energy is waning a little bit, but I'm someone who is activated by people and tries my best to activate others. And so I think that hopefully there's some, contagiousness around my energy level that I bring to the table, which helps the collaboration. So energetic collaboration is probably where I kind of shine brightest. And this is an important insight that I'm not sure, every single resident has insight to, is historically, because of sunshine laws, a lot of times city council members aren't allowed to do collaborative or city work without kind of an open meeting and having it agendized and having it published. And so sometimes that really, in a lot of governance situations, takes out that kind of outside collaboration. But what I think I bring to the table and what I enjoy is kind of that relationship building outside. So there's nothing against the laws of saying that, city council can't be, grow more friendly or grow more warm towards each other. So, having conversations with various city council members outside of meetings around, their activities or their family or their desires, their interests, those really help build the relationship so that when we dig into the work in these open meetings, we're able to do so with a relational aspect that I think, isn't super quantified, but it is really important to be able to make difficult decisions as effectively and efficiently as possible.
Awesome. And what would you say like your core values are that will guide your decision-making process on council?
Yeah, I think selflessness is really important, and it's kind of like an ask for others as well. I think when we tend to advocate for certain ideas in the city, various stakeholders obviously are advocating for, their perspective and their goal, and I think that's really important. You can't really advocate for something while you're giving away everything else. But I think taking my own, like I mentioned this earlier in the conversation too, kind of taking my own ego out of the process and the decision making, and allowing a multitude of voices to really participate is important. And inviting others to, because everyone is ready to understand that their one priority isn't the only facet or factor in decision making, but really inviting others into that collaborative, selfless conversation where, no one's going to get 100% of what they want, but how can we make it so that everyone can get as much as possible? Particularly those who aren't at the table. I think something that historically has been part of my decision-making process is reaching out to the voices that aren't necessarily present, whether that's because, they're busy, they're have a busy family and they're working all day, so they can't show up to city council meetings, or they work night shifts and they're at work during those times where we have public comment available in person. So trying to advocate for a variety of opportunities for stakeholders to really participate in the conversation. And a lot of times that means putting myself out there in kind of vulnerable ways to hear conversations, particularly those that I might not agree with or might not come to the table with that initial perspective. So I do my best. I'm not even trying to say I'm a selfless person, but as we mentioned before, just really doing that personal work to put myself out there and know that, yeah, I've had plenty of experiences where I'm not the expert, and I'm willing to continue having those experiences as well.
Awesome. And what do you hope that residents will say about your impact at the end of your first term, which is a shorter term since, like you said, you took Mayor Carmelia's role in council, but what do you hope that residents will say at the end of your first term?
I hope they would say a few. I mean, one, maybe saying nothing is great, maybe not kidding, but if they are saying something, I'd like for them to say that they know me, that they've had an interaction where they can know more than just my name or more than just my votes, but they know who I am. And I think that's important. Maybe even they say they know other councilors or other leaders because of my desire to drive that connection. And I would also like to say, I would also like for them to say that because of maybe my impact, they know a few other people as well. And, even if they know me and they know they disagree with everything that I do, at least they know me and more than just my decisions.
Yeah. Well, in talking with you in previous meetings and just getting to know you, it's pretty apparent that you're very much about community and building that space for people. And one of the ways that you've done that I find so interesting is your neighborhood community gardens. I don't know if maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So really, I mean, we mentioned kind of the pivot point that COVID kind of offered a lot of folks, particularly those in my generation, millennials. But around COVID, we really had that desire, I think, for two things. One, for our health, we were looking for fresher food, more local access to food. We were looking for, and through that process, we connected with some co-ops in the greater area via Boulder or in Denver, and even in some of the Westminster farmers markets as well. But we kind of were enjoying that process of freshness, and so we decided, hey, in our HOA, we have some green space that's a little bit of a detention pond, but also, just a lot of green space that's open. And some of it had been, I mean, it was managed well, but it was kind of just, vacant and sitting there. And I love our HOA, Alpine Vista. It's a very small HOA. There's just 16 homes and we're all super friendly. And, I approached the board and asked if my partner and I could just start a community garden and invite others, within our HOA to join. And they were more than supportive, particularly because we did the legwork for it. And so we did it. We just kind of, laid some mulch down, built some garden beds, filled in the dirt, just kind of did the work. And the first year we were very late on the uptake. We started when the weather was warm, when we should have been planting. So we were about a month and a half delayed, but got a good first year. We doubled the size of it the year after. And now we're in a good kind of holding pattern now. But what surprised us a ton was the community connectivity that happened with the community garden. There's no kind of fencing around it other than just a little bit of barriers for the landscapers to know where to mow and not mow. But, we probably met before the community garden a quarter of our neighbors. But after the community garden, I'm confident in saying that we know the names of about at least half of the neighbors, not only within our HOA, but also in the neighboring community as well, who use our green space for, their walks or their dogs or playing with their kids. We share strawberries and tomatoes and fresh fruits and vegetables. We would drop some off on people's porches, and it really allowed us to connect in a very neutral and positive way. And I think, if anyone out there is looking for advice on how to connect, my first piece of advice is, if you have a front yard, throw a few boxes out there and spend some time out in your front yard, and you'll just get to see and know people. And if you share some food, you're going to share some feelings as well.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love that. I think I shared with you. We don't have one in my community. We don't have a community garden, but I've thought about that. I do not have a green thumb. I do not garden, but I would love for something like that to exist that I could at least just come and be a part of. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I'd love to share, maybe offline we can share some wisdom and
Yeah.
perspective, and I'd love to because I think it's a great piece. And even if, it has nothing to do with my role on city council, I would consider it a win if
Yeah.
we just had you and your neighbors experience some good natural, like literal natural connectivity.
Yeah, definitely. So other than the community garden, when you're not at City Hall, how are you spending your time?
Yeah, it's surprising. The very first night that I was on city council, I got my email account, everything activated. I had like 70 different emails pop up for events. So even when we're not at city hall, I hope that residents can know that we're everywhere. I think someone mentioned that the former mayor Nancy McNally, she somehow had a doppelganger or something because she was literally
She had
at
several.
everything. Yeah, so I took some good wisdom and advice on that, and try to show up to different events that are city sponsored. Um, the chamber does a great job doing a lot of outreach and inviting us to a variety of ribbon cuttings or just opportunities to connect with small businesses and members of the chamber, which I'm super grateful for, because without those avenues of connectivity, I would have to kind of create those from scratch. I do enjoy playing pickleball. I know Toby is gonna destroy me if he ever. Kobe is gonna destroy me if he ever challenges me to some pickleball. But so I do enjoy playing some pickleball and exercising at the rec center up on 104th and Sheridan, and participating. I like also anything that's sort of you know taps into some of that more organic and natural feel. I was mentioning earlier that I went to a sound bath from one of your chamber members, and that was one of my first experiences with kind of the somatic healing and sound kind of process. But it was really fun and new, and I really appreciated it. And while it's not something that I would ever have chosen on my own, the fact that I was kind of offered the opportunity to go there, my partner, in connecting with our neighbor who is a member of the chamber, she said, "Hey, I think we should check this out." And it was a brilliant moment. Yeah, Sola Sparkles is the name
Yeah.
of her business, and
Yeah.
it was a really grounding moment. I had a really busy week last week, and this week is setting up to be even busier as we prepare for our strategic planning meeting. And it was
Great.
the perfect kind of grounding moment to reset and re-engage.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm hoping that they'll do more of those events because people really enjoy that type of thing. So yeah, I'm glad
Yeah,
you're able to attend that. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And so many people from across. I think there was only one or two other people from that immediate area, but people from the greater Westminster area and the greater Denver area came. I think someone came from even over 20 miles away. So that was really remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned strategic planning. What are some things happening in the city right now that you wish people understood more or just kind of knew more about, or what kind of plugs do you want to give?
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. So we are heading into our strategic planning session this weekend. This Saturday, we're kind of City Council has an all-day event where we, work with city staff and some expert planners as well to create this strategic plan that guides staff and city council decision making for the next year. And every time there's an election, we really re-engage deeply with the plan. Pardon me. And there's an annual kind of update process as well. And so this is something that we've been doing a lot of prep work for. We've been every single meeting. I don't know if I've gotten home before midnight, really, after any meeting, because a lot of it is just preparing us to have enough information and background to be able to have important conversations for this strategic planning process. So that's one piece. I'd love residents to know, like, now's the time to really reach out and continue chatting with your representatives. We also have been doing a lot of work. Now is the legislative session, and I didn't really, until I stepped into city council, I didn't really realize the important lobbying work that the city, the chamber as well, does during this legislative session. So a lot of what I've been doing as well has been kind of reading up on bills, seeing the status, tracking the status, and kind of advocating on behalf of the city for whether we, appreciate some bills that are going to be, helpful for the governance of the city, or, trying to work with legislators to advocate for what our needs are as a city. So that's kind of a background piece that I never, we don't really, there's no real avenue to bring people along for those conversations other than joining them in the public comment during public hearings and committee meetings at the legislature. But that's some work that has taken a lot more time than I kind of initially anticipated as well.
Yeah.
And also just there's a lot of really exciting projects. I guess I can't even, name them at the top of my head because, I talk to staff and there's, oh, this is all great. And I take notes on it. And then there's the next project. But, we're really trying to, we had a city update with the mayor and the city manager around the advocacy work and the strategic work around our unhoused community. And I think that the city really presented some incredible steps that we've taken that isn't always really easily seen in the public eye, from preventative measures to the strategic steps that we take. It's literally called the STEPS program that has been designed and in the works over the last couple of years from city leadership that they are continuing to implement and continuing to grow. And so if anyone, on here didn't get a chance to catch that city update, I'd really recommend you go to, the city website. It's on, linked in the YouTube archive. And there's some incredible information that I'm really happy that we do as a city and glad to continue to support and dig into.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and having you on the show today. And thank you so much for being here. We will see you tomorrow at the State of the City, which is another opportunity to hear from city folks as well. But is there anything you want to leave us with before I let you get back to your day?
No, just I'm really grateful for everyone who's listening with us today. I saw some people kind of popping up in the corner. So thank you all for those who are listening, for their continued support to the good work that this chamber does. And just a really great thank you to you, Jamie, for inviting me on here and giving me the chance to, have a platform to share a bit about myself and a bit about the work that the city's doing.
Yes, thank you so much. And thanks to everybody who joined us today. We'll be sure to have Councillor Barajas on again in the future. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your week.